My broke uncle stole off my mom for years, then tried to move himself and his daughters into my mom's house, but he's now living in a place where he belongs. I grew up with just my mom and me. My dad has always been overseas with my family in Taiwan. My mom and dad met when my mother went backpacking in Asia. I sometimes get to go over and be with my dad 4 weeks out of the year. Now, my uncle, mom's brother, was always around, but not in a good way. He never seemed to have his life together. He constantly bounced from job to job, always needing to borrow money or, worse, taking things from our home that he never returned. My mom, being the kind and generous person she was, always bailed him out, even though it frustrated me. I tell her she was enabling him, but she'd just say, "He's my brother, I can't just abandon him," but be annoyed as well. My uncle lived off my mom's generosity for as long as I can remember. He'd stay at our house for weeks, sometimes months, without paying a dime. He was always asking for money, promising to pay it back but never did. My mom would give it but again be annoyed. That wasn't even the worst of it. He also had a nasty habit of stealing things from us. Little by little, things would go missing from my mom's jewelry, some electronics, and even sentimental items from my grandmother that had been passed down to my mom. I confronted him once when I found a ring that belonged to my mom in his coat pocket. I picked it up, and it fell out. I swear I wasn't snooping, but he swore up and down that she had given it to him. My mom was skeptical and locked up her remaining things for the first time around him. Then my mom begged me to let it go because I tried to file a police report. I took pictures and everything, and she was terrified of her baby brother going to jail. However, it wasn't just my mom he stole from. When I was a teenager, my uncle came to one of my school plays. He came to the back dressing rooms and claimed he had some food my mom wanted him to give me. It was Starbucks and a cake pop. I noticed he was lingering around my clothes while awkwardly asking me about my role, and how long the play would be because he said my cousins wanted to join too. I told him and gave him an itinerary, and he left abruptly after that. After the show I realized my wallet was gone. I searched all over the dressing room and asked other if they had seen it. I was sure I had left it in my bag, but when I asked him about it, because he was in there acting weird, he acted offended that I would even suggest such a thing. A few days later, my mom found the wallet in his car, but all the money was gone. He claimed it was a misunderstanding, that he thought it was his, but I knew better. I called my grandpa and he knows his son better than anyone, so he ripped him a new one. He offered to open me a bank account so I wouldn't have to keep cash on me, and I accepted. My mom was so disappointed and told me how grandpa was always so unfair to my uncle, basically punishing him for the bad things he did, but grandma and my mom would baby him and enable the behavior. Oh yeah, he would rip off my grandma, too, until she basically died from breast cancer 2 years ago. Well, a year ago my mom found out she also had breast cancer, and it was really bad, like stage 3. She had chemo regularly and was always sick. I took care of her. My uncle was never around unless he needed money. When my mom passed away, it hit me hard. She was my world, but along with the grief came the will and responsibility of handling her estate. Surprisingly, she left everything to me. Our family home, her savings, everything. In her letter, she said she felt it was the only way of making sure I was taken care of and would live a happy life. She also left me videos and told me the order of watching them, such as kids. She wanted to be called Gammy I Cried So Hard, weddings, breakups, and a few other milestones I'm motivated now to complete. I also knew it would cause problems, especially with my uncle, and I was right. When he found out that he wasn't getting anything significant, he was livid. He showed up at the house, demanding that I let him stay and that I share the inheritance with him. He kept saying, "Your mom would have wanted me to be taken care of too," but I wasn't having it. I knew what my mom wanted, and she didn't want her hard-earned money to go to someone who never lifted a finger to help himself. A few weeks after my mom's funeral, I noticed some of her things were missing from the house. She always wore a necklace, an antique watch that belonged to my grandmother, and some cash she had stashed away for emergencies. I knew immediately who was behind it. I confronted my uncle, but he denied everything, accusing me of being paranoid from grief. He even had the audacity to suggest that I must have misplaced them in my emotional state. I didn't buy it for a second. I knew he was lying, but there was little I could do without proof. It hurt to think that he would stoop so low, but at the same time, it wasn't surprising. This was the same man who had been stealing from us for years, taking advantage of my mom's kindness when she had cancer and my grandmother's generosity before that. After that, I changed the locks on my mom's house and even ordered some cameras for Amazon. Reason 1, I was living alone now, and 2, my uncle kept showing up, letting himself in, and kept trying to get into my mom's room or my room when I walked out of it. Luckily, I had the keys to those rooms, had always locked them when I left them. My uncle had been trying relentlessly to get me to let him move himself and his daughters into my mom's house and give him and his daughters more of my share, basically think them 80 me 20. When I refused to give in, my uncle switched tactics. He started using his daughters, my cousins, to try and manipulate me. We were close growing up, and he knew they looked up to me like a big sister. Suddenly, they were reaching out, dropping hints about how we should all be one big family and how it wasn't right for me to take everything. It didn't take long for me to realize that my uncle was feeding them lies. He told them I was stealing their inheritance and turning my back on the family. They started to pressure me, talking about how we needed to honor my mom's memory by sticking together and how it would be selfish of me to keep everything for myself. It was hard. I loved my cousins, and I didn't want to hurt them or make them jealous in any way, but I also knew I couldn't give in. My uncle was trying to use them as pawns to get what he wanted, and he tried to contest the will several times but was denied because my mom gave him 1,000 with a letter saying she hoped he got his life together. I knew what she wanted and I couldn't stand by while they tried to take everything. I couldn't let that happen. I stood my ground, even though it tore me up inside. I told them that my mom left everything to me for a reason and that I wasn't going to dishonor her memory by giving in to their father's manipulation. They didn't take it well. They accused me of being selfish and greedy, and eventually, I blew up, calling their father a moocher and a bum and listing everything he stole from us and from grandma. They called me a liar and said I was jealous because their dad was here with them and not overseas, living his best life away from his problem of a daughter. I kicked them out after that and said they were starting to disappoint me by acting like I owed them anything. They cut me off after that, and my uncle stopped speaking to me. Soon after, I started hearing through the grapevine that he was spreading lies about how I'd stolen from him and the girls. It hurt, but I knew I was doing the right thing. After some time, I discovered that my uncle's financial situation had only worsened. His poor choices finally caught up to him. One of my cousins is in jail for 6 months for following his thieving footsteps. Meanwhile, I invested my inheritance and am thinking of selling my mom's house because one thing my uncle was right about is that it's too big for just me. I'll make sure to use it in a way that would have made my mom proud. And looking back, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, standing up to my uncle and cousins, but it was necessary. I couldn't let them manipulate me into making a decision I'd regret. Sometimes, protecting your peace and honoring the wishes of the people who truly loved you means making tough choices, even if it means losing people along the way. Anyway, thank you so much if you made it this far in my family drama. For some reason I still feel uneasy, like it was too easy to get rid of them, but I'm starting college in 3 weeks and have already started looking at condos in California, so I'll be far away. Wish me luck.